Good afternoon, 7th graders. Today's lesson, Lesson 5, is Intro to Integers. Our essential question for the day is, what are integers and what are their purpose? First, you need to know that when you subtract two positive numbers, those are numbers that are larger than 0, it is possible to get an answer of 0. 0 is neither negative or positive. Again, 0 is neither a positive number or a negative number. It's a number itself. Integers are a group of numbers that include positive numbers, negative numbers, and 0. It composes of those three things: positive, negative, and 0. Integers have no upper bound or lower bound, which means that they range from negative infinity to positive infinity. Negative integers are numbers that are less than 0, and positive integers are numbers that are greater than 0. So here we have a number line just to kind of illustrate this. Here's 0 in the middle, and then anything to the right of 0 is a positive integer. Anything to the left of 0 is a negative integer. And sometimes number lines help us see which numbers, especially when we're ordering, which ones are negatives and positives and where they go. Some real-world examples of integers. First, we have sports. In sports, especially the game of football, we can gain or lose yardage. If we're talking about a gain, then that is a positive number. If we're talking about a loss of yards, then that is a negative number. For money, we have deposit and withdrawal. Deposit means I put money into the bank, so that is a positive number. And withdrawal means I take money out of the bank, so that's a negative number. With weather, we have above and below 0. Above is positive and below is negative. Same thing with geography. We have above and below sea level. Above is a positive number and below is a negative number. All right, ordering integers. It's very important first to read the instructions on which direction we're going. In our example, we are going from least to greatest. And there's a hint here. Sometimes you need to draw a number line if you don't know exactly where to go. If I were to draw a number line, I know that 0 is in the middle. And then I have a -6, a -14, a -15, a -12, a -3, and a +6. Well, first I'm going to start with -6. Is that on the left or the right-hand side of 0? Negatives are on the left, so I'm going to put -6 just somewhere over here. Then I have a -14. Is -14 on the left or the right-hand side of 0? It is also on the left-hand side. -14 is further from 0 than -6, so I'm going to put it down here further. Then I have -15. It is also on the left-hand side of 0, and it's one step further than -14. So I'm going to put it over here. Then I have -12. Well, -12 is going to fall in between -6 and -14, so we're just going to put it about right here. Then -3. -3 is on the left-hand side, but it is only 3 spaces away from 0, so it's going to fall in between 0 and -6. Then we have +6, and positive is on the right-hand side, so it's going to go over here on the right-hand side. Now, this has already set me up for ordering it from least to greatest. So if I were answering this question, it would be -15, which is the furthest number away from 0, -14, -12, then -6, -3, and then 6. Remember, 0 was just my starting point. And that's these numbers ordered from least to greatest. Now let's talk about absolute value. Absolute value is a number's distance from 0 on the number line. And the symbol for absolute value is represented here. So for example, if I have the absolute value of -4, How many spaces away from 0 is that? Well, that's 4 spaces away from 0. If I have the absolute value of positive 9, well, that is 9 spaces away from 0, so my absolute value is 9. Now, absolute value cannot be a negative number because distance is never negative. Now, what happens if my negative is on the outside of the absolute value sign? Well, here I would take the absolute value of 3, which is 3, and the negative on the outside represents the opposite of. Okay, the negative on the outside means opposite. So what's the opposite of positive 3? Right, negative. So that's why this answer would be negative. Not because absolute value is negative. Absolute value, when I took it of 3, it was positive. It's this negative on the outside, which means the opposite. Let's talk about the difference between numbers in parentheses and absolute value. If I have a number in parentheses, let's just say negative 13, I can't do anything to this number. This number is just represented that this number in parentheses is a negative number. If I have an absolute value of negative 13, I can do something here. I can find the distance negative 13 is away from 0. So this would be 13. Now, if a negative is on the outside of a parentheses, remember this negative on the outside means opposite. So I'm going to take the opposite of negative 11. Well, what's the opposite of negative 11? Right, positive 11. So this would give me positive 11. Same thing as we talked about with absolute value. If it's on the outside, this means opposite and so that would be negative 9 because the opposite of absolute value of 9 is negative 9. This is not in your notes, so this is something that you're going to want to write down beside it or on a separate sheet of paper. All right, number opposites. Opposite numbers are two different numbers that have the same absolute value. So for example, 4 and negative 4 are opposite numbers because they both have the absolute value of 4. They're both 4 spaces away from 0. Now it's your turn. You're going to pause the video and you're going to name the opposite of each of these things. Now we're going to practice what we have learned. On the next 2 slides, there are practice for you. I want you to pause the video. When you're finished with this slide, move on to the next one. After you finish the next slide, you're finished for this lesson.